When I was 15, I snuck out of my home and decided to walk to my boyfriend's place. He lived 20 to 30 minutes away, walking. It was late, and we lived in a sketchy area. I was young and naive, so I decided to wait until my father was asleep and snuck out. The weather was nice and warm. I believe it was April or May. The year was 1995, and I was a small, petite 15-year-old female walking alone through a back alley in Atlanta. It was dark in the back alley, with a large graffiti wall, and trees leaned in barely any glow from the moon. I had a small pocket flashlight and used that to walk over rocks and debris. I took my time appreciating how beautiful everything seemed at night. It was 1 a.m. and quiet when I stepped out of the alley. I came across a fence and walked through a break in the fence. I was now walking through grass behind apartment buildings. Some lights were on and television sounds echoed through the windows. As I got closer to my boyfriend's place, I felt the hairs on my neck stand, and this eerie feeling came over me. I picked up my pace and walked over to my boyfriend's window. It was dark in his room and hard to see if he was in there. I tapped on the window twice and waited. No answer. His curtain didn't even move. I walked over to his neighbor, who was his cousin, and tapped his window. He said my boyfriend may have fallen asleep in the living room. He had to babysit at the last minute. His cousin and I chatted for a while, and when I realized how late it was, 3 a.m., I said goodbye and went on my way. Instead of taking the alley, I decided to walk alongside the highway, Buford Highway. It wasn't too busy, and there was better lighting from the streetlights. As I started my way towards my home, I thought I heard footsteps behind me, but didn't see anyone, and dismissed it as an active and paranoid imagination. I continued walking, and this time I stopped and turned around. About 500 feet from me, I could see a figure of someone standing looking in my direction. I have yet to see a car drive by or anyone else out that night. It was just me and the shadowy figure behind me. I turned around and noticed that he stopped when I stopped. I stopped to the side, and so did the figure. I began to walk faster, and the figure did also. Without warning, I ran, and I ran across the street. The figure also began to run but did not cross the street. I was ahead of the figure, and as soon as I saw the entrance to my home, I would run back across as fast as I could to the safety of my home. I noticed how much faster I was than the figure when I was running. He couldn't keep up. I ran across the street and up a hill right onto the front porch, locked the door, and straight into my room. To this day, I have no idea what chased me that night, but I never snuck out again. This happened just earlier tonight after I got off work from McDonald's. I was sitting in the lobby enjoying a much-needed post-work meal when suddenly a young, I would guess mid-20s man sitting at the table across from me looked directly at me and piped up.
I don't think you know me, but I know you.
So naturally, I'm extremely taken back and wondering what the heck this man is on about, and just give him a bewildered look, hoping he'll explain himself. Noticing my confusion, he said,
You work at Walmart, right?
Walmart is indeed my other workplace apart from McDonald's, so now things started making sense. Oh, yes, I work both here and there, I replied. He then just nodded and smiled before saying,
Thought so. You gave me the best customer service ever. I know you probably don't remember all the customers you get, but I remember you. You're really smart. You know all the ifs, ands, and buts of the place. They should give you a promotion.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad I was able to provide you with such great customer service, and I'm glad you found me so memorable. I felt the tone was light-hearted enough by this point that I could playfully call out his clumsy wording before, so I then remarked, But did you have to open that up the way you did? I don't know you, but you know me? Pal, that was the creepiest possible thing you could have said. Like, it reminded me of a line from a stalker film. He laughed at himself along with me and apologized for his poor word choice, and we started making small talk for a few minutes. Now, if the encounter had ended there, I would be regarding it as more wholesome than creepy. But no such luck. I noticed that during my conversation with him, a woman about his age who was seated at the table with him and who I presumed to be his girlfriend kept interjecting angry remarks at him. She would call him effing stupid, tell him to shut up, and similar remarks. It happened several times. The first few times he and I both tried to ignore her, but after that he just looked at me awkwardly and said,
"She's mad, I don't know why."
I just chuckled back at him with equal awkwardness and shrugged. Finally, she'd had enough. She leapt up from her seat, stomped over to him, grabbed his wrist, and hissed.
"Get in the car, now!"
He sighed and gave in to her and said his goodbyes to me as she basically dragged him out the door. Thinking all of that was over and that they had left, I just shook my head and went back to my meal. But mere moments later, both of them stormed back in and started arguing very loudly and profanely with one another in front of the whole restaurant. They physically grabbed each other's upper arms and just started repeatedly yelling insults and vulgarities in each other's faces. Obviously, this was very much to the point of disturbing the peace, so my manager firmly told them to leave the building immediately. This caused them to turn around and start cussing out my coworkers in retaliation, so a whole group of them banded together to literally chase the two out the door, with my manager exclaiming that she was going to call the cops. This scared them off enough that they got in their vehicle and sped off. My manager still followed through on calling the cops, though, and a few minutes later, an officer was outside speaking with her. My other coworkers had gone back to their duties by this time, so I quickly finished up my food and started heading out. I wondered if the cop was going to want to talk to me too, but he seemed content to just continue speaking with my manager, so I continued making my way across the parking lot to Walgreens, where I had been planning to stop on my way home. While out there, I encountered an older couple who had witnessed the two troublemakers drive off angrily, and the husband told me that whoever was driving the vehicle backed it up into the curb so hard that the bumper had fallen off. I, in turn, explained to them what had happened before that. It was a lover's spat that very quickly turned into a disturbance of the peace. They asked me if anyone had gotten hurt, and I said thankfully not. We exchanged a few more words about the incident and a bit of friendly conversation before cordially parting ways. Both my time at Walgreens and my trip home went off without further incident. I still feel a little uneasy knowing that these clearly unstable people know where I work and apparently find me very recognizable. But hopefully, whatever rage they have is solely directed at each other, and not me.
I am a seasoned truck driver and have been on the road for over a decade. I know the highways like the back of my hand and have seen it all, from bad weather to reckless drivers. However, nothing could have prepared me for what was about to happen. I was driving my semi-truck through a remote area of the country when I noticed a pickup truck following me. I didn't think much of it at first, but as the vehicle got closer, I realized something was wrong. The truck was driving erratically and seemed to be intentionally trying to cut me off. I tried to speed up and get away, but it was too late. The pickup truck pulled up alongside me, and several armed men wearing masks climbed out of the pickup and jumped onto my truck.
Pull over!
I was petrified. I've heard stories of truck drivers being robbed and attacked, but I never thought it would happen to me. The men were aggressive.
Get on the ground. Don't move.
They rummaged through my truck, taking anything of value they could find. I begged them to stop and pleaded with them to let me go, but the men were not interested in listening. They continued to ransack my truck, taking everything they could get their hands on. After what felt like an eternity, the men finally finished their search and fled the scene, leaving me shaken and traumatized. I was lucky to have escaped with my life, but know that I will never be the same again. I reported the incident to the police, but the men were never caught. I continued to drive my semi-truck, but the memory of that fateful day will stay with me forever. I know I was lucky to survive, and vowed to always be vigilant and aware of my surroundings, especially when driving my semi-truck.
Don't skip this.